One of the oldest and most prominent genres of gameplay in gaming is turn-based games, or more specifically for this topic, turn-based RPGs, a system of gameplay made more popular by the old Final Fantasy games and one that's evolved over the years and stood the test of time. And yet, as much as many people love the strategy-based elements of turn-based combat, there are always the loud group of people that hate it. With the recent Game Awards awarding Baldur's Gate 3 Game of the Year, I've seen many posts about it winning on all social media. And one thing I noticed from the reactions to those posts is a lot of people think it didn't deserve to win. And most of those people are the same people that think Spider-Man should have won Game of the Year. Some of the remarks I've read about Baldur's Gate is that it looks like a mobile game and even that it's not real gameplay. Now I think many of us can agree that Baldur's Gate did deserve the win and is a huge leap for gaming in terms of turn-based game mechanics and gameplay in general. These comments lead me to realize something I never thought of before. Some people really hate turn-based. And the main reason that stands out for that is they think it's boring. Now depending on the game they tried out, if they tried any at all, I can understand why they would build that perception. For example, I like the old Final Fantasy games, but even I know that the time it consumes on grinding and fighting the small enemies over and over again every couple seconds can be a bit of a hassle, and would definitely turn you off if you're new to it. That said, there are many newer games that are way more involved and action-packed than old turn-based games. That's not to shit on old games. I love and appreciate and enjoy all of them, but not everyone has the same level of patience to enjoy them. An example I would give of a modern turn-based game that really keeps you going is Persona. Mixing in the combat with having to manage your time in the real world, go to school, plan your days, and all that affects you and your strengths when you go to the dungeon-like areas. It makes the gameplay interactive and involved, and to top it off, it requires a pretty decent amount of strategizing and management. I recently started playing Persona 4 and immediately got taken by it. The combat is also challenging, and having to learn enemy weaknesses to exploit it and deal damage is as satisfying as it is in any game. But even so, what if the real world aspects of Persona itself isn't something you want? Then let's look at other modern turn-based games. Yakuza Like a Dragon, the 7th game in the Yakuza franchise and the first Yakuza game with turn-based combat. It switches up the formula a lot and makes it feel more action-packed, as a lot of the combat is in real time, mixed in with quick time events and other mechanics for real-time interaction, as well as some really action-packed and hilarious moves. Another modern turn-based game I can think of is Sea of Stars. It's a smaller turn-based game, as well as Octopath Traveler, which mixes the 2D 3D art style. Turn-based combat is not a boring mechanic. It can be done well or it can be done poorly. There are some games like Undertale that have you actually needing to do things instead of just selecting movesets, and also sprinkling in story elements during the combat in a way that feels natural. Even older turn-based games tried new things. Not all of them were as tedious as Final Fantasy. At least that's how I felt when I played Chrono Trigger. You cannot deny a game that involves strategy as being a fun game. Maybe you don't enjoy it. Maybe you prefer mindless action and mashing buttons, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I like that sometimes too. But I appreciate all games that are good regardless of gameplay. What makes a game good isn't just the choice of mechanics, but what they do with it. For example, Spider-Man is not that much of an original game. It's a take on the Arkham series, but it also has many elements similar to older Spider-Man games. Yet, I won't go back and say Amazing Spider-Man 2 game is good. Nor would I say Gotham Knights is good. Baldur's Gate 3 is a take on turn-based games and is also poetic considering Dungeons & Dragons is responsible for a lot in the turn-based genre. But Baldur's Gate 3 did things no other turn-based games has done. It gives you countless ways to go about doing something. You can't compare that to a game like Spider-Man, which was good but was safe and had a linear gameplay style. Of course it didn't stand a chance in a Game of the Year against Baldur's Gate 3. It didn't even stand a chance against Tears of the Kingdom alone. Turn-based games have you needing to use your brain in order to get through it. Strategy games are as old as time. It's the reason games like chess are so popular. And saying a game like chess is boring or stupid is a bit of a stretch. You not enjoying it and not being able to mash buttons doesn't make a game bad or boring. It just means you don't enjoy it. And that's fine. But you can't argue about it and say things like that expecting people to listen to you, especially if you yourself haven't given turn-based games a try. I always found turn-based to be a satisfying system, even though I'm not very good at strategy games in general, and I struggle somewhat with turn-based games, but I still enjoy it. Leveling up and getting stronger, managing different things, upgrading skills, taking on challenging enemies, and winning within an inch of your life. There are some things that make it a lot harder and have downsides in many games, especially older ones, such as not being able to save wherever you are and having to restart a dungeon if you die, but those aren't in every single game, especially modern ones. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about this given all the countless bad and negative comments I've read about turn-based games ever since Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year. I've seen some of the most ridiculous takes and arguments from people who hate turn-based games, those people being the same people that wanted Spider-Man 2 to win. Let me know in the comments what was your first experience with turn-based games. Mine was a game called Monster Lab on the PS2. I'm sure no one's heard of it, but it was fun and it made my childhood. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a good one.